You know, one of those questions when they say, "Oh, what's your favorite rap record?" and you go, "I haven't heard it yet."
Styling.
Right?
Styling.
Right? Because you just got to say that. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, I could say that Fight the Power. I was 18 years old when Fight the Power came out, Public Enemy. And Public Enemy changed my life. Yeah. So much so I did Celebrity Mastermind.
Really?
And that was my specialist subject.
Oh, really? Was it subject?
It was Public Enemy.
Please tell me you got through.
I won.
Come on.
I won. Mate,
that's fighting the power and winning.
Yeah. No passes.
Wow.
Every question right in my specialist round. Yeah. It was the first 3 albums which concentrated on the birth of Public Enemy. And it was like... And the thing about it was, when you do Celebrity Mastermind, it's a big show. Yeah. That is a big show. Yeah. Like, I've never been more recognised after doing that show than any other show I've been on. Yeah, and I've done, like, you know, House of Games and The Wheel and all this stuff. But there's something about you, that chair, the light on you, Clive Myrie's looking at you, and it asks... And also, in that moment, I'm thinking... Before I get to the chair, when I get up from one chair...
What are you thinking?
Killa Kela podcast. KillaKelaOfficial.com.
Street Culture TV.
Beatbox created.
Killa Kela.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
Killa Kela podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, Killa Kela podcast, live and direct, not in central London for a change. So big up yourselves for joining us. And of course, all you subscribers, lovers, and people that are sharing the street culture love across the globe and beyond. Okay, people, our sponsors, the mighty GKNIFTYHEADS, have 10,000 play-to-earn GraffPunks NFTs to give away. Get ready as London's white trash goes blockchain digital with Bitcoin Cash tokens locked into them to claim. Get yourselves over to the website GKNIFTYHEADS.com and play to earn now. We're in Manchester. We're in a good friend of mine. This gentleman has been a stalwart within the hip-hop community. Little did they know, with BBC Radio presenting under his belt, he used to litter my eyes across many a hip-hop connections, from writer to author to podcaster to presenter. It's Nihal Arthanayake, a.k.a. Crazy A, inside the place.
Yes, indeed. Killa Kela, inside the place. Yeah, crazy.
And I forgot to mention the Muddy Funksters as well.
Muddy Funksters, Collapsed Lung before that.
Collapsed Lung. Yeah. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Collapsed Lung, sorry, I'm just jumping straight at fanboy alert straight in.
No. Friends. From day.
Actually, yeah, let's pause for a second, because you're absolutely right. We have many junctures, and we was only talking about it from a northwest London point of view. Right?
Yeah. But there's loads of crossover. I mean, the hip-hop scene... And just being part of it. So this is pre-grime, pre-drill. This is just straight hip-hop for the culture, 4 pillars. Understanding that culture. It goes way back. You and I go way back. In fact, I went to my mum's place the other day, and I found a box where I kept all my gig tickets.
Stop it.
Going back to the first rap jam, right? Called it a jam. The first rap jam that I promoted in Essex when I was like 17. 18, I still have the flyer for it. A revival of rap, we called it.
Stop it.
Yeah. Because we did it kind of as a revival of rap, because it was at the beginnings of the rave scene. Yeah. A lot of the people that had been hip hop heads kind of migrated into the rave scene. Yes. And they started doing, I think it was kind of pre-ecstasy, or just, it was trips. People were doing trips and they were getting into the drugs in the house scene. And the rave scene in Essex, where I grew up, was huge, right? So we did a revival of rap. So we wanted to bring hip hop back. And so we did these 2 jams. The first one was when I was like 16. The second one was like 17. But I found the flyer for it. And I found all these things, Kels. All these different tickets and passes and after show. And from when I was a Hip Hop Connection journalist. And I found a Wu-Tang Clan ticket, which was a mad show at Brixton Academy, where one of the guys there threatened to throw me off stage. Not one of Wu-Tang, but one of the South London security guys. Really? Yeah, who was. I'm not going to name him because he's a very, very, very made man in Brixton. And we ended up eventually getting on really well. But that night was mad. Yeah, it was mad. So anyway, just going through those and all of these memories coming out. And you were there. I mean, there was so many things, including an invite to a Puff Daddy party
Really?
But
really?
just to be clear, it wasn't one of those ones.
Yeah,
there was no baby oil. There was none of that business.
I don't remember that. But probably for the best.
Yeah,
to
well,
be
it was
fair.
at a club called Sound Republic, and it was
right,
the
that's
opening party of Sound Republic in Leicester Square, and it was a
Actually,
brand
now
new
you come to
club.
mention it, was Missy Elliott meant to be there and all sorts?
I don't know. I know that on the invite it says Puff Daddy exclusive, yada 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 yada. And I do remember the party, but it was thankfully it wasn't at a house of his. It was at a very public place.
Yeah, very, very. See all of this back catalogue of information. Big shout out to Mark Lavelle actually, because a friend of ours from East London, he did give me a few insights that even I didn't know, and I didn't realise how deeply ingrained in hip hop you really almost put yourself in. It's almost like it was a coming of energy and understanding and a bit of a mission brief for yourself, like a personal mission brief. It seems that you kind of bestowed upon yourself.
Well,
you know?
Kels, the thing about hip hop culture for me was I was a little brown kid in a white school in a white environment, and I'm of an age where in the late 70s, early 80s, that was dangerous, right? Because there were these guys called skinheads running around, and it was almost fashionable to be racist, to say the P word, to write it on walls, to call people, to shout at our parents. All of that stuff was happening. And then when hip hop culture came along, suddenly it brought with it this kind of coolness of melanin, like being brown or being black, certainly being black, but also the Hispanic involvement from America just meant that being a minority, because it was minorities that were at the forefront of hip hop culture. So suddenly all these kids who maybe a few years ago, if they'd been a bit older, may have been skinheads and may have been running around being racist, suddenly they were breakdancing, right? They were rapping, they were beatboxing, they were DJing, they were graffiti artists. And the whole thing changed. And it was the first time in my life, Kels, that I found a tribe. Hip hop gave me a tribe.
Calling.
It gave me a calling. It gave me a tribe. You know, I was rapping, I was freestyle MCing, I was battle MCing, I was doing all of that stuff, which made me accepted. Like it gave me a crew. It was like the first time I ever had a crew. Like you're always searching for that. You know, we're tribal humans.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that tribe because I was this little brown boy in a white Essex village. And then finding hip hop culture just gave me so much. I mean, I'm like 13, 14 at this point, right? Yeah. And it's crazy what I'm listening to. I'm listening to Mike Allen or you know, the now disgraced Tim Westwood, listening to these people on the radio, playing beats. Dave Pearce, Fresh Start to the Week on BBC Radio London. Whoa. You know, all these things. And I rapped with an American accent. Like it was so bad.
But it's part of the course. It's funny, I was talking to a friend about it the other day. It's like, you know, when you're pushing a tide, you have to accept those moments, because what that results in, you get your grams, your drum bass, and you're kind of learning as you go. You're feeling your feet as you go. There's a culture.
Yeah, you're trying to be accepted, and also it just sounded cooler until London Posse and Demon Boys and these kind of guys came along and was sounding so British. Like by the time I came to record tracks as the Muddy Funksters or Collapsed Lung, I definitely sound British. But those early things when I'm 14, 15, I'm just sounding American. It's bizarre. It's weird. Someone sent me weirdly a recording of something I did for Fresh Start of the Week. And it is so like it's corny as hell, right? Like if you listen to it, it's corny as hell. But you're just kind of going, I was just trying to fit in. I was like a teenager just trying to fit in. And like I said, it was London Posse and those kind of groups, Demon Boys, Hijack. There was a lot of kind of British rap that was coming through. Tony Rotten,
yes,
Black
Tony
Twang,
Rotten, absolutely.
You know, that were coming through. They were just unapologetically British,
just breaking through.
Yeah, and I feel it's like those guys came 15 years too early, 20 years too early, whereas now. No one bats an eyelid, right? No one would bat an eyelid, whether it's Central C or whether it's, you know, Pot of Paper or it's Storms. You know, you hear these guys and it's just normal to have a British accent next to an American accent. But then it was just American. And everyone was obsessed with it.
It just eclipsed everything, doesn't it?
But from the beatboxing perspective, it must have been different, right? For you.
Didn't have a language, you see.
Exactly, right? It was all about the beats, right? So you could just
purged.
drop in, but you could drop in an American, you could just go on stage in New York or whatever and do your thing.
And no one think any different.
That's what I'm saying. Whereas you know, someone would come on and go, firstly they'll go, if it was like London Posse or whatever, they might go, there are black people in the UK? Like some Americans it blew their mind that there were even black people in the UK. I remember hearing that.
Classic.
Yeah, but you could just step on stage and beatbox and just blow the crowd away, right?
Yeah, totally.
And did.
My guy. Yeah, we did. I did it well. When I mentioned to people that you were coming on podcast, I got this onslaught of like links and videos and things that you've done over career. You know, Prime Cuts, for instance, Dexter, all these people. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm bed no bones about it. You know, tell the guys, tell the team.
Love that.
I mean, you really took it in from the perspective of like early hip hop. You took it to the mountain as well. Was it right? I remember seeing you on The Word. Was it The Word you were on?
I was on a thing called Raw Soup,
That's
but
it.
I was also, I mean, there were lots of things that we did.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Like I think now that I'm of a certain age, you can look back on it, and the thing that you have to have by the time you get to my age, I think, is that people knew that you were in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Right? That you were in it for the right reasons. But also as well, I evolved into different things, you know, like I didn't stay rapping, like I stopped rapping. I didn't stay doing PR for like hip hop acts. I went into radio. But even when I went into Radio Kels, you know, when I went to Radio 1, part of the reason that I was there doing this Asian Beat show is because I understood the culture of black music and I had paid homage to black music, specifically hip hop, but also Bashment. And I remember always wanting to support Asian rappers. Like, you know, one of the things I did at Radio 1 was I got Riz Ahmed, Riz MC,
Yeah. Wicked.
and Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino, to do a session together for my show. Yeah, they did a session together for my show.
That must have been a proper moment for you, you know.
Oh, crazy.
The two handshakes coming together. Yes, I've fucking done it.
I mean, because it was
Incredible.
about trying to build a bridge between cultures. That's what you and I, that's what hip hop gave us, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about colour or religion. It was just about a culture that brought you all together. That's why we knew about Can, for instance, the band, right? Or we knew about Led Zeppelin, and we know about the Beatles, and we knew about, I don't know, we knew about James Brown, and we, like the music we were listening to because of the breaks, the things people were sampling, whether it be kind of Aerosmith or Kraftwerk, right? There was just such an incredible amount of music and culture.
With history behind it.
History behind it, culture, like you have to understand where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
You need to know the roots of this. That's why you and I are blessed to come from a generation, because I've got teenage kids, right? And they can't really tell me anything about music, right? Because whether they're listening to the latest hip hop or they're listening to the latest drum and bass or whatever, we know all of that, right? Like we know, that's why if you see someone like Nihal Archives now, who's making Junglist, right, infused music, you know that she was hearing that growing up.
Yes, 100%.
Right? That those records were being played, whether it, you know, on Ram Records or wherever. She was hearing that music. And for a number of people now in their 20s, showing the influences of their parents. Like, I think if you were into just Britpop, if you just listened to Oasis, I just think now, like, I don't know how much in common you'd have with your kids. You could play it to them, but that music was dull.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I hated all that time.
Rock and roll style was good.
I get it, but it just felt really exclusionary to me. It felt like it was for white blokes.
Yeah.
Right?
Lager beer, curry fight.
Laddie bloke. Like, I went to Nebworth, right? I saw Oasis at Nebworth. I got racially abused at Nebworth, right?
What?
Yeah. Backstage as well, like in the VIP bit. Some guys, I was just with a couple of girls and they were white girls. So I think these guys took offence to that and then called me the P word. And I remember just going, wow, this is mad. Like, it's not
progressive for by any stretch.
I didn't think it was an open-minded, but also as well, it was a music that to me didn't have deep cultural roots to it. Like, okay, there's the musical roots to it, but hip-hop culture is dance, it's art, it's fashion, there's so much
and
to
paying
it.
homage at every step.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I mean, I've interviewed Kool Herc, I've interviewed Grand Wizard Theodore, I've interviewed, again now, lots of rumours abound, Africa Bombata. You know, I've interviewed a lot of people that were, I mean, especially with Cool Herc and Grand Wizard Theodore, like at the birth of this.
Forget it. That's
right? At the birth of this.
That's, you know, the top of the mountain, the buck stops there, really.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, to understand that and to understand where that comes from is incredible to me. You know, look, I'm a fan of some of Oasis's songwriting, but that whole laddie culture that came with that Britpop thing, which I felt was very exclusionary. It wasn't open to people of different cultures and different backgrounds through the 90s. And I went to a lot of those gigs and, you know, I was always one, like the only Asian in the room or one of the only Asian in the room. And then I'd go and see Sizzler at Brixton Academy and it was amazing, right? And I was an Asian in a room largely full of black people and no one batted an eyelid. Whereas you'd go to some of those guitar-y gigs and people just stare at you.
Your lineage also lies within the crossover of rap and rock and punk.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, I was in a band called Collapse Lung for 2 singles. We did the first 2 singles with them, and they introduced me to a brand new world, right? Which was at the time it was kind of Nirvana and Rage Against the Machine. And so bands that were really like heavy and they had big drops, but they still had to have a vibe about them. I mean, if you listen to Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
That still smacks.
So yeah, it's a crazy record, right? So I definitely got into that and started listening to Radiohead and just kind of more. That really did expand my mind. But then, like I said to you, Kels, right? Hip hop had already done that, right? Like I knew about craft work, right? Alongside the JBs, right? There was so many different, and then all those Breaks and Beats albums, those Ultimate Breaks and Beats, where you're putting them on and you're hearing this mad music, and then the DJ's obviously looking for the beat, the break, just to cut and scratch and keep it looping. But I remember, I think you can't be into hip hop culture without being open-minded.
No, you can't be. I agree.
I just don't think it's possible.
You've got to keep an open. I mean, God, when you think about every single sample, things that, and then there's genres that people don't often accredit. You know, like George Clinton, Funkadelic, and you know, these almost become 100%. Niche kind of moments. And we had such crazy experimentation on all levels. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely
amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, we would go and you just find these breaks. These small bits of instrumentation that the DJs would use on the vinyl and keep them looping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. No samples, just back and forth on the vinyl. And you just go, I mean, Al Nafish, the soul, like electro music, right? All of the different things that went into that, right?
SOS Band and, you know, that era of...
Right.
Still one of my favourite eras of soul music.
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
Princess, and, you know, that's West London to me.
Say I'm Your Number One, by Princess, yeah. I mean, all this incredible music and all this incredible culture. But yeah, gravitating into that world was fun. I mean, Collapse Lung was pure indie. Like we were playing gigs and we were supporting acts like Pop Will Eat Itself and you know, and I was stage diving and crowd surfing and like mad stuff.
You got to do that once in a while in your life. I mean, you have to do it.
You're not allowed to anymore, I think. Like,
really?
Yeah, health and safety things. Like, I don't know if you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah, of course you can. But I know that there's at gigs now, they'll security will just pull you out. Like they'll just go, no. If they see you crowd surfing and all that.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like health and safety stuff because venues potentially could get sued, I guess, if that kind of stuff happens. But anyway,
I heard that Rage Against the Machine and Power were the 2 records that some academy venues, you know, refused allowance to play. They won't.
Really?
You get fined or something if you play those.
Wow,
those
killing in the name of
and Lethal Bizzle.
Yeah, and Lethal Bizzle Power. It makes sense. I mean, they're rowdy records. Yeah, I can imagine they had Original Nutter to that list as well.
For sure. And Shutdown as well. Probably you should add that as well.
Yeah. all of those songs. But that's the thing. I think one mistake our generation makes is to pretend that they've heard the best hip hop,
sure.
And that hip hop was at its zenith in like the late 80s.
That does drive me mad.
Yeah, that drives me mad. That drives me mad because you can't say that Kendrick Lamar could stand up again next to any of the rappers we grew up with.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
It is
Without
mad,
question.
right?
Yeah.
If not more so, right? Just different. It's evolved. It's different. But then people will go, oh yeah, who else? But Dave, Dave is an unbelievable lyricist.
Oh my
Gets
God.
is extraordinary.
Yeah, I know.
E-Money.
Crazy.
Right? All of these guys have got, I mean, we could just go on and on and on. They're just unbelievable lyricists. So this idea, you know, one of those questions when they say, oh, what's your favourite rap record? And you go, I haven't heard it yet.
Styling.
Right?
Styling.
Right? Because you just got to say that. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, I could say that Fight the Power, I was 18 years old when Fight the Power came out, Public Enemy. And Public Enemy changed my life. Yeah. So much so I did Celebrity Mastermind.
Really?
And that was my specialist
Stop
subject.
It. Oh, really? Was it subject?
It was Public Enemy.
Please tell me you got through.
I won.
Come on.
I won. Mate,
that's fighting the power and winning.
Yeah, no passes.
Wow.
Every question right in my
Stop
specialist
it.
round. Yeah, it was the first 3 albums which concentrated on the birth of Public Enemy. And it was like, and the thing about it was when you do Celebrity Mastermind, it's a big show. Yeah. That is a big show. Yeah. Like I've never been more recognised after doing that show than any other show I've been on. Yeah, and I've done like, you know, House of Games and The Wheel and all this stuff. But there's something about you, that chair, the light on you, Clive Myrie's looking at you, and it asks. And also, in that moment, I'm thinking, before I get to the chair, when I get up from one chair,
what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Do you know what? I'm thinking to myself,
don't fuck this up.
Yeah, because if you fuck this up, your community, people like you, go, come on, Nihal, man, that was whack. Come on, Nihal, come on. You were there, bro. Like, how did you fuck that up? Like, they would. You feel that pressure of, this is for the culture.
This ain't Pop Masters. No. You got to get this right. No.
This is for the culture. You're going on the most mainstream TV show. TV show that's gone back how many years has Mastermind been on?
That's an
Decades.
institution.
It's an institution. You're going on that to talk about Public Enemy, right?
Yeah.
Public Enemy, who's the most anti-institution, anti-authoritarian, like anarchic hip-hop group of all time, right? And you know that you have to nail that.
Nail it.
You have to nail it. Like I was, in the run-up to that, I read books on Public Enemy. I was listening to the music all the time in the car. I even got ChatGPT to ask me questions.
Really?
Come up with Public Enemy questions.
Full bore season is in a Flavor Flav.
Come on.
Wow.
Kels, I went in. I was like, I'm leaving nothing to chance.
Was there any question that you would thought, oh, I didn't expect them to ask that one?
No.
Nothing. You were just full
bang,
bore, ready
bang,
to go.
bang, bang. Bang!
That's
like
incredible.
5 penalties in a row. Bang!
Really?
Top
Really?
corner.
Really?
Yeah, like it was.
I'm on a roll here.
Yeah, it was. Like the first one was.
Come out, you dog.
The first one was started with Chuck D's real name and said his real name, Carl Ridenour, and said his real name, and then went, you know, the lead singer of and I was like in. It was like Chuck D. And there was another one I think with Terminator X's real name as well. And there was, I mean, I've forgotten a lot of it now, but yeah, I swatted hard for that.
That is so cool
for the culture.
Yeah,
you got to do it, right?
Yeah,
you got to do it.
You do.
Public Enemy.
That's mad.
And I've met Chuck D a number of times.
Has he seen it? Has he seen it though?
No, but I am interviewing him in October.
You have to run that.
Yeah, I know. I might have to show it to him actually because it only lasts like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
I just go, Chuck, I just want you to see this. It's probably still on BBC iPlayer. I hope it is. Anyway.
See, it's so hip hop. Do you know what I mean? Up here in Manchester. I think I had to, just for my own, my own pleasure, I dialed in on the Smiths, looking out the window of my hotel, thinking, yeah, this is where it's at. Manchester, what are you doing here?
So I moved up here 9 years ago with the BBC to do a full-time radio show, which I stopped doing last summer, and now I've gone purely into podcasting, like your good self. Yeah. And I moved up here with my family. We moved to Stockport, which is a little town south of Manchester.
That's it.
And it's taken us a while to get used to it. I mean, I was in London for 20 years. We live in the same manor.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get used to a smaller city when you I love London. Yeah. I love everything about London. Yeah. Also, we moved to a place where suddenly I was a minority again. And I hadn't felt like a minority in 20 years because no one of colour feels like a minority in London.
Yeah, no,
right?
I get it.
So I had to get used to that, and then we moved up here. But, I think no disrespect to any other city, but Manchester is a whole vibe. Like the music scene, the fashion scene, the club scene. I mean, and it goes deep, right? Manchester goes deep. And it really has been an incredible experience. I think my kids have had an extraordinary experience up here. Quite dark at the beginning. There was a lot of bullying and we had to move schools for them. But then they found their groove and they found their vibe. And yeah, they've found their vibe. My wife's found some really good friends up here. I've really embedded myself in a lot of the culture here. So whether it be Warehouse Project, which is an extraordinary clubbing environment up here. I mean, it's a super club, right? It's like 10 to 12,000 people. Like it's crazy. But the lineup's a bit amazing. The people that book it are so on point, so got their ear to the ground and what's going on. The big DJs that come through here.
Serious caliber.
I mean, it's mad, all the kind of DJs that I've seen play there, from like Jungle to the late, great Virgil Abloh, who wasn't a DJ, obviously, as much as he was an incredible designer and creative visionary. And Central C's performed there, and Black Coffee I've seen DJ there. Like it's the lineups are off the scale. But then there's like smaller clubs like Gorilla and Deaf Institute. And the thing about here compared to London is, I think London's so expensive. I don't need to tell you, right? And it went through this level where it just got bougier and bougier and bougier. So less about culture, less about music, more about ordering bottles of champagne and the super rich and all of that. And I haven't been in London for 9 years, so there is definitely, obviously, still things going on there, and lots of fashion and music and culture. There's a lot going on, but I think entry level here is easier to get in at entry level.
Even just walking around. What's that road? Church Road. Okay. Just going down Church Road and seeing, the original Carhartt, but then you get a vintage shop right next to it.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean? There's at least 4 record stores all along that parade. And it's like you say, on entry, you can associate yourself, you can work with the nuances of what might be on trend, might be off, but culture is there on the high street. Yeah. Where it's not really, Forbidden Planet and places like that.
Well, it's interesting, like, I like Sadiq Khan a lot. I've known him for years. I think he's a fantastic mayor. And Andy Burnham up here is really, really into music and culture. Really? Yeah, and it really helps.
That's a huge asset.
Yeah, it just really helps that you've got someone who's not just like an accountant or, a property developer or someone like that. It's someone who really understands the value. And Manchester has always understood 100%. From a council level the value of culture, that actually Manchester's reputation is not amplified by the fact it's built another skyscraper, right? That no one cares, right? Because you're never going to be Dubai, you're never going to be Abu Dhabi, you're never going to be Singapore. That doesn't care. What they do care about and what they do understand is how culturally relevant and how exciting culturally Manchester is and how you can amplify that. So there's an incredible venue called Aviva Studios, which is home of Factory International, which is where the Manchester International Festival happens. And Factory International and Aviva Studios is like world class. A venue holds 5,000, but it's got a theatre as well. Wow. Then there is Home, which is another great venue. It's like the Barbican of Manchester.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so it's got those kinds of places. Then, then there's the kind of different theatres and different, Playhouse, Bridgewater Hall, the Royal Exchange. But then also, as I mentioned, venues like the Deaf Institute, Gorilla, Amber, which is a new club.
Celebrating the arts and culture.
Yeah, people
experience.
And people that are really, really, really into it, right? But as with all places, certainly there is a concern that with gentrification, with those big skyscrapers, with the property developers, with the money moving in, whether it be money from the Middle East, with Abu Dhabi as well, of course, because of Manchester City, or whether it moves in through Chinese money, because there's a big Chinese community here, and then also British money as well, that it prices out the artists and the culture, and they are very conscious of that.
Yeah, I bet.
And Home, which is the kind of equivalent really of the Barbican, Home set up these super cheap spaces for artists to create in. They've
Super important.
Super important. And London, London I think didn't do enough of that, right?
It's doing the complete opposite, really.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you need those little kind of warehouses. You need those collective hubs.
And they have these places here. They're these old mills. There's a interesting property developer firm called Capital and Centric, and they're doing incredible work.
Yeah, I've heard they're doing that.
They're serious, but they're property developers. But they've just got an idea of community around it.
Yeah.
That you can make money, you can be a successful business, but you can also think about community and culture.
Yeah, without money grabbing and strangling
without
people.
just trying to. I mean, look at London, right? Every spare space, there's just. It seems like, and we're probably going way off topic here.
This is great.
But every time I go back to London, I just see more cranes and more housing, residential flats, apartments that no one can afford, that are probably part of investment portfolios from people who don't live in London.
And they don't get they're not on the ground.
Years ago, I remember driving in a taxi. So I was sitting in the back of this taxi, and the cab driver said to me, "Look at all that." And I looked up on the banks of the River Thames, all these apartments, and there were no lights on in any of them.
Wow.
It was just black. No one was living in these places. It was just like, London property boom, bang, buy, invest, leave it there, portfolio, bang. It's just sitting there. It's just like investing in a share and watching the share price go up and go up and go up and go up. And you're just, but people need homes, right?
Need to live.
And people are fearful that this has already happened in Manchester. So some areas like the Northern Quarter and Coates, these areas that were developed, I mean, I go to, my son boxes at Moss Side Fire Station Boxing Club. So I'm in Hume and Moss Side at least 2-3 times a week. And that Hume High Street is amazing. Like it's like being in Harlesden.
Really?
Yeah, it's so cool. African grocers shops where you can go and get your Ghanaian peanut butter or your smoked turkey legs.
Cool as fuck.
All these things, right?
Yeah.
All these amazing places full of culture, like brimming with different languages and cultures and food stuffs and, hair places and all of that, man. And
that's
I love that.
That's my impression of Manchester in a nutshell. Is it's such a multicultural experience on the whole.
It is. It is when you're here, like in the centre of it, but you go to certain areas and it'll be only Asian.
Rural
then you
areas,
go to another
right?
area, not even.
Really?
Like just slightly out of the city centre, pure Asian. Then you go a bit further out, pure white. So one of the things I noticed here when I got here was how segregated it felt.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And just a kind of weird simmering. It's kind of hard to put this delicately because it's purely anecdotal, but just a kind of anti-Asian racism that you just didn't feel in London at all. Just a kind of really simmering anti-Asian, like people. I've heard the P word up here. I never heard that in London.
Nah.
Like I just never heard it. Like someone to get slapped for that.
Yeah.
But up here with certain people, it's still a word they feel comfortable in using, in a way that they probably wouldn't the N word.
Yeah.
And I found that obviously very hard. In fact, I can't talk too much about it, but someone called me that word, and I've taken them to court for it.
Good.
Since we got up here, since we moved up here. And I was so shocked because I hadn't been called that word in years. I was like, it was almost, I didn't want to take this person to court, but a friend of mine said to me, no, you have to, you've got a platform, you've got to kind of make a statement on this. And it was so weird, Kels, because who the hell does that? So there's this weird, because the two communities I think are so segregated, there's such like Asian areas, and then there's white areas. Like there are streets up here where a white person wouldn't buy a house on that street because it's Asian. An Asian wouldn't buy because it's kind of mad.
That's so mad.
Yeah, because in London we're all stacked up on each other. No one really thinks that way, right?
Yeah, no.
So even if you go to areas that are deemed to be super Asian, you'll still see white people around, right? Whether they're students or whatever, right? But here it seems super segregated, and that's not just Manchester. It's like the Northwest is quite like that. A lot of these towns,
right?
You see, I mean, like Oldham had a huge problem with it for many years, and then of course there was the problem that happened, the terrible criminal things with the grooming gangs.
Yeah.
Which was made to be an Asian thing, right? The papers and the medias was like, it's Asians doing this, it's Asians doing this, it's Asians doing this. And weirdly enough, when an all-white grooming gang was, you got nowhere near the amount of press coverage on it. And clearly there were issues here that had to be addressed, and still some of them have to be addressed. But I think it added to the kind of simmering... I don't know if hatred is the right word, whether that's too strong, but just prejudice.
Yeah.
Prejudice. And coming from London, I was just like, I almost got this feeling that if you're a minority up here, you were kind of expected to know your place when I first moved here.
Wow.
Which was kind of weird, because coming from where I come from, I'm like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not Gandhi in this. If you want to large it, we'll large it, right? Like, don't think that I'm just going to go, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, master, no, master. Like, I'm the Asian dude. I'll doff my cap to you. And it was weird. It was very weird.
It's so fucking backwards. That doesn't compute, particularly in a major city.
It's just, I just think, and look, this is all purely anecdotal. So, these clips will probably get a lot of people angry, right? They go, no, it's not like that. Because obviously people want to defend their home and go, no, it's not like that up here. But the segregation is real, right? Like, it's real. Like, so much so.
A lived experience, you're going through it.
But they had to, in Oldham many years ago, they had to close an all-white school, an all-Asian school, build a school in the middle. Because otherwise they were like, these kids are never going to meet each other. They're never going to see each other, right? But there's definitely, speaking to people of colour, especially people who've moved from London, a lot of people have said the same thing to me.
Really?
Yeah.
So they get the energy as well.
You definitely get the energy, like, definitely. And I even called out the BBC on it, right?
Really?
Because BBC North, where I worked, was so monocultural. It was obscene how few people of colour were working there.
Wow.
Not only that, a lot of the people of colour that worked there, Kels, were just really, really, they felt marginalised, unheard, unseen. They'd have to code switch all the time. Whereas I was used to, where I was before at Radio 1 and 1 Extra, an Asian network, on the 8th floor of that building, black, Asian, what, like, it was, everyone was
just another day in the office for us.
That's
you know
what I'm
I mean?
saying, right?
You.
And it was just normal. And then suddenly, over years, it just wore me down. Like, it wore me down to the point where I said it in public. It then went in every paper. Then I had, all these racists coming for me. This was December a couple of years ago, where I just said, I walk into this environment which is overwhelmingly white, and it's affecting me.
Yeah.
There's like so many people here, and it's meant to be diverse.
Yeah.
And I've got no one to chuck
And
it with.
what was their feedback? Was it just a kind of shrug? What do you don't know what you mean.
Like, they
did it get a bit David Brent? Was it a bit?
You know what? Like, there's, like, I'm sure. Listen, ultimately, I'm not interested in your words. Like, you've got to change this. You've got to make people feel included. And if you're a woman in an all-male environment, or if you're a gay person in an all-straight environment, you would understand how I felt. Like, every day I'd walk in there and I'd look around this floor, and at most I'd see one other person of colour. But often as well, the people of colour were doing everything they could just to fit in to a very narrow idea. It wasn't even like white working class. It was like white middle class. So if you were a white working class kid, I can imagine you would feel equally okay, all of these people here are fairly middle class. A lot of them went to private schools when actually only less than 10% of kids go to private schools. But this place seems to be overpopulated with people who went to private schools.
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, and you would just think, well, this is weird. So it would just be weird. I mean, like, little things like, when the Drake and Kendrick thing was kicking off, right? To someone like you and I, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as part of a culture, and battling
historical
back and
moments.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, this goes back to all of the battles that we've dealt with over the years, right? Where people have been battling each other and people have been going at it. But this was on a whole different level. This was like a global level. But yet, there was just no one you could talk to about that. No one would get excited about that. Or you just come in with even the weakest stuff. Like, you were wearing some fresh joints, right? Like off the scale.
This will get some, head
Right?
nods, hat tips. Yeah.
Right. And no one would recognize that because they don't care. Right.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to walk in and everyone's applauding you because you're wearing a fresh pair of Air Force Ones that no one's seen
No,
before,
I get it though.
Right. But just some, like I was wearing these, so I was in London the other day and I was wearing these Air Force Ones, which are a collaboration with a Cold Wall, right? It's a British designer. These shoes are unbelievable. Like the detailing, the lacing, everything about it is off the scale.
That's a Googleable thing, by the way.
Yeah.
If you don't know,
Go and look at a Cold Wall. Right, when everyone was looking at Travis Scott and all of that stuff, right, or the Virgil Off-White, all of that, when they were looking at that, this quiet black British designer, a Cold Wall, did this collabo with Nike, right? And they weren't selling for crazy money on StockX or whatever. They were just, I saw them and went, I'm having them. So I'm walking along and this dude's walking towards me with probably I think it was his girlfriend. He's walking along and he's in his 20s, right? And all he does is just look at my shoes, look at me and go, like that. And I'm like made up. I'm like, that's what it's about. That's the culture, right?
You kind of want that in your workplace, especially if they're leaning to popular culture, youth movement. Like,
yes.
why would you not employ people that could do that?
No one was there that would understand the context of that. Like there was no one there. Like there was one or two people and we'd all like just huddle together and talk about it. And after years of it, it got me down. And when I said, look, I walk into an overwhelmingly white environment and it's affecting my mental health. Obviously the far right and the right wing went, he's a racist. So they started calling me a racist, an anti-white racist. And it's like, that's not the point. You've made it about you straight away. So you're not even listening to me.
Yeah, you're not even hearing,
right?
yes.
But B, try and imagine, and really interestingly, the support I got a lot of support from middle-aged women who DM'd me going, I know what you're talking about. Because they know what it's like to work in all-male environments and feel othered and feel not listened to. And the thing was, one of the BBC people, the management people said, yeah, but no one's being racist to you. And I was like, that's not the point.
They don't get it, man.
That's not the point. It's like, this is a creative environment. The BBC is supposed to be creative.
Yeah.
And you can't be creative if everyone's pretty much the same.
No.
You'd like, where are the Muslim voices here? Like, when you are having conversations around Muslim community, there's no one here that can put their hand up and go, or the Jewish community, or the Hindu community, or the Sikh community.
Team conversations in anything associated with popular culture, politics, especially when it's regional. Like, there has to be this unanimous conversation of things to move forward and things happening. You can't have it one-sided. It's got to be of equal level,
Otherwise
equal conversation.
Otherwise you're not doing the job. You're not representing people. You're not representing your audience. Because if you look across your floor and kind of everyone's kind of like you. If you're a leader and you look, then you failed, right? Like it's just a failure of leadership because you, from all the way down the line, because you should be angry. Like you should be going, I'm not going to be, my organization is not going to be the best that it can be. Because it doesn't have the challenging voices, the pushback.
So why do they sit on the fence about that? Is that just out of sheer panic?
I just don't think they
double
know.
Backing or moving in a way that
I just don't think. I mean, there's lots of internal politics of how the BBC works that I could go into, but that would be boring. I think I don't know, like if you're a young person of colour, why would you want to work for the BBC? Why would you want to? I don't know what would be in it for you. I mean, I can only talk specifically about the part of it that I was in, but I'm not sure why you would right now, because when I came in 20 odd years ago, and I'd already been in the music industry, I'd been working in PR and a journalist, right, and record deals and all that. Yeah. So I came in and it was amazing, but I definitely felt like there was this attitude of be grateful.
Hold on. So you're going in there with arguably more qualification than probably the CEO. You're coming in there with all this repute, all of this experience, all of this value. That to me is mind-boggling because, you should be sitting there. You should be in that place.
So a management role is not something that you want in an organisation like the BBC. Like, not if you're super creative, because the more higher up you go, the less ability to be creative. Like you're kind of like, I guess you're dealing with all kinds of nonsense.
You're kind of team managing and
kind of like that, and also as well, right?
Killing small fires.
Exactly. You're kind of whack-a-mole, right? Like you're just doing all that, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I think it just seems super dull to me, if I'm honest. And also, there is a separation between production, which ends up being the management, and talent,
for sure,
right? And talent are on 1 year or 2 year contracts, and production and management, once they've got a staff contract, it's almost impossible to find. So you can just keep going and going and going for whatever, and you can either fail upwards or you can be okay and go up and get. But that's not the game.
I can totally see where you'd be frustrated, though.
Yeah, like,
on a number of levels.
I wouldn't want to do that. I'd want to be the lead, and remember that show for 8 years had my name on it. It was Nihal Arthanayake, and creatively I was driving it, right? Like creatively, there was a great team of people, without a doubt, but that was a show that was molded around who I am. That's why I could interview Chuck D on it, or Jordan Peterson, or Billy Connolly, or Liam Gallagher, or a huge range of people, Asian, black, white. We would do subjects that, I wanted to. My thing has always been about empathy. It's like, how do we build bridges with each other, not walls? And also, my thing has always been where people of colour, younger team members, will come and complain and say, "This is how I'm feeling." Like, I've always felt I can't stay silent on that. Like I have to say something, and that's got me in trouble. I mean, without question, that's got me in trouble because I'm not molded by an organisation, right? I can't be. I mean, that's why I don't do full-time live radio anymore because I just couldn't be molded by that. I couldn't subscribe to those rules in good conscience. I couldn't just turn my head away and go. Okay, fine. It's not. People are not happy, and
for your own greater gain, sort of thing.
I couldn't. Coming away from full-time radio had a financial cost to me, right? Like, without question, because I went from 12 hours of live radio to 2-hour podcast a week, right? And that carries with
your
it
moral standards.
Vum, your finances, vum. But also, I now make as much money just behind the scenes, doing things that I want to do, consulting to record labels. Writing, working, doing stuff in corporate world, right? Whereas if you're going to do stuff that's corporate, if you're going to play a corporate game, play it in a world where you get paid well for it, not in a world where you still have to pay the game, but you don't get paid that well for it.
Yes.
I mean, you do get paid well compared. Like definitely got paid well for being a full-time radio presenter. There's no question compared to what the average wage is in this country. I definitely got paid well, right? But to be able to do things in the corporate world where the professionalism, the talent, the drive, the focus, the ambition is so good and is so strong, is really challenging to me, and really I love it. Yeah, I love it.
With your integrity intact.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, I mean, look, I'm not doing corporate gigs for arms companies or anything like that. So I'm choosing who I work.
I mean,
for.
you're going to go to a book
festival. No,
right?
I just did that in February. I went to Gaul Literary Festival in Sri Lanka.
There you go. Jesus, wow, that must be amazing.
Well, I mean, Kels, when you write a book, it puts you into a different world.
Author,
It's a mad thing.
Yeah,
it is a mad thing to be an author, right? It is a mad thing.
Right?
I may never write another one. I've been working on another one for 2 years and I've been terribly slow at it. I'm hoping to get another one out in like 2026, 27. But being an author, it sends you into a different world. Yeah. To sit down and discipline yourself to write 70,000 words, on one subject.
Yeah, but you come from that lineage, you come from that school. Like, as I was saying at the start, Hip Hop Connection, you were always there.
Yeah, we did big pieces.
How do you, if you're with all of these octopus arms that you have within the media world and a creative head on your shoulders, and you're able to apply yourself as an author in Mastermind and such, I understand that you're a man of mission brief. You like a target, and also you like a reason why for doing things. But how do you funnel? Ultimately, it's brand. But how do you funnel all those all those qualities and aspects to yourself into one centralized place where you're completely content with all of those things activated. Not necessarily one singular thing doing its job, but how do you contain all those things and process it and put it into your daily life? How do you do that?
Look, Matt, I think, it's often said by people like us creatives that there's, especially of our age, that it's just undiagnosed ADHD, right? Right? That just, there's so much of constantly needing that creative dopamine of different projects, not doing just one thing, being lots of other things. Also not allowing yourself to be boxed in. On my Instagram reels the other day, I just put a DJing thing on. Then there's an author thing, then there's an interview thing, then there's, a hosting event. There's all of these things. And I'm judging the British Book Awards at the moment. And, I have to leave it to the last minute. Something about the way my brain works is I can't do it a month. It has to be done super.
You're one of those A-level kind of get it done 48 hours before you go to exams, right?
That guy. Kels, I'm that guy, right? So I'm when I leave here, I'm going to go and I've got books in the car. I'm going to go and find a cafe and try and read 150 pages of one, 100 pages of the other, 100 the deadline for that is Thursday.
Wow, okay.
Right, and we're now on a Monday,
Looking
so
around,
it's
see?
like
Come do podcasts, my guy.
Yeah, no, it's you, Kel. So I was like, you know what, I'm definitely doing it, and I said I would do it, and man of my word. So
Yes,
so I think part of it could be slightly destructive in the sense that you sometimes don't finish everything because you're just kind of. But I've learned coming away from doing live radio, I've learned to be happy with doing nothing at times when I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's a
right?
big challenge in itself, right?
And then when it starts to happen, like I'm doing this event for a massive, massive global company in Dublin in about a month's time. And when that kicks in, that is going to be 3 days of such hardcore, delivery. Yeah, it's like absolute delivery. And then recently I was doing some stuff for some record companies, and that was like super intense. It was like, got the call on the Tuesday, Thursday I'm with the artist, Friday the report goes in, all over the weekend we're back and forth about it. We're just getting out, and doing that is like, is super intense, but it's interesting. And then nothing, right? So I'll drop the kids at home, go to a cafe, which I love.
Kent it,
that's what I'm saying, right? Like just chill and lounge around a bit at home and do a lot of housework and make sure when my wife's out at work that, the laundry's done and all that, and just not feel guilty about that because, when it begins. But then, I'm in my early 50s now, and how much more relevancy do I have? And I'm just a born optimist. So I'm now essentially in a freelance world, whereas for many years I was a waged BBC for over 10 years.
Different hustles.
It was every week, right? So just when I'm thinking no one cares, something happens.
Like always.
Like it's weird. Like
it is weird.
Just when I'm thinking like no one cares, I'm washed up.
Yeah, but you're tuning in.
It's over.
Yeah.
It happens
all the time.
Then so for instance, this big corporate thing that I'm doing next month, at the beginning of the year, I was told that this company who I'd worked with before, they'd changed direction and they were going to use another presenter, right, for a lot of this stuff. Then, like 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, I get a call going, actually, they want you. They want you, right? And you're like, oh, wow, okay, that's great. And then even the record company stuff, it came in, get the call. You're on it, you're working it hard. Then the next artist comes along and they're like, right, can you help with this artist? And then you're that, and then you're doing this, and you're doing that. And I love that. The chance to work quite closely with artists, whether they're on the way up or sometimes one of the biggest artists in the world, is incredible. To sit in a room with someone who, hundreds of thousands of people pay money to come and see, and to have that moment with them and to help them on their journey and to give them some advice and to listen to them and then guide both everything that's going on around it. It's quite incredible, right? It's incredible. And I'm enjoying that. I think someone said to me recently, you got to see it as experience equity, right? So equities are like shares,
Take
which have
note,
value,
people.
right?
Yeah.
Experience
Love
equity,
that.
right?
Yeah.
So when you step into a room with an artist, or indeed it could even be a corporate leader, you can say to yourself, okay, rapper at 15, 2 record deals by the time I was 21, journalist till I was in my late 20s, joined Radio 1 at 30. I was a publicist working with Elton John, working with Mos Def, working with Gangstar, going to do Top of the Pops in LA with Mos Def, going to do later with Jules Holland with Gangstar, traveling to Madison Square Gardens as part of Elton John's PR team. You know, you've done all of this stuff. So you've seen these parts of the world, right? And then you go to Radio 1 and you're a Radio 1 DJ and you're DJing at Glastonbury, you're DJing at WOMAD in Singapore, you're DJing across India, you're doing tours, you're doing all of that. Then you go to the BBC Asia network and you're dealing with really heavy political, you're dealing with terrorism, you're dealing with, you know, forced marriages, you're dealing with grooming gangs, you're doing all that, you're interviewing Asia Network. I interviewed David Cameron, Ed Miliband, Boris Johnson, you're doing Nick Clegg, interviewed all that, right? And then you go...
Mad.
Yeah, and then you go to 5 Live from Asia Network, and
Yeah.
then suddenly you're interviewing, you know, Liam Gallagher, Sir Billy Connolly, Sir Elton John, weirdly. You're interviewing Jordan Stevenson, you're interviewing all of these people. Crazy. You're live on air when the Westminster terrorist bridge attack happens. You're live on air and all your scripts go out the window, and for 3 hours you have to just not wing it, because it's more, you've got a very good production team around you, but you're the one on air.
Yeah.
And big news events like that, people will come to the news stations.
Yeah.
And I was on air when the Queen died, right? It hadn't been announced, but basically the rumours were circulating all morning. I came on air at 1 p.m, right? So from 1 till 4, my entire show changed. Everything left. But, and this is why it was the trickiest bit of the day, you couldn't say she'd died because the palace had not announced that she had died. So what you had to do was you had to talk about her, but not in the past tense. You had to have conversations with people about her life and her legacy, but again, not maudlin, not as if someone's died, just saying, you know, she's obviously seriously unwell because everyone's going up to Scotland. People are flying in from royal family to go up to Scotland. So obviously something has happened, but you couldn't say it. And I remember, weirdly, that day, I broadcast live from London, and I usually broadcast from Manchester, but I was in London. And I went through that whole day, did that show, and in the evening had dinner with Benedict Cumberbatch and Rick Rubin. Yeah. And Kay Tempest.
Wow.
Yeah. I did this incredible dinner put together by a man called Jamie Bing.
That's one hell of a seating.
Yeah. I was sat next to Benedict. It was amazing. It was the most amazing. It was the weirdest day. And then the Friday, I was at Buckingham Palace, outside Buckingham Palace, in a black suit, presenting for 5 Live.
Then it takes all of those experiences that has led up. So, you know, for these emergency, reactive, you know, just figuring stuff out on your feet, that's over 10,000 hours right there, pal.
Oh,
that's
bang,
like,
bang,
got to
bang,
be sharp and on
bang,
it.
Bang. So it's like, it is 10,000 hours, right? So I'm doing 12 hours a week, right? Yeah. So 12 hours a week, you're doing whatever, like 500 hours a year of broadcasting. And also as well, you know, on a number of occasions, I've been in the tabloids, right-wing press coming for me, so I know what that feels like. Like, I know. So when I'm talking to an artist or I'm talking to a celebrity, I know what it feels like when they come for you. Right? Like, I know, right? My lived experience of this. So this is experience equity. So if you go from that rapper in a playground in Essex to a man whose name is trending on social media because the right wing have come for him so hard, GB News, all these nasty people, they've all come for you. Like, you've got all of this and you've survived it all. You've survived it all. In fact, you're bigger and you're stronger.
It makes you stronger.
Right? So that is experience equity.
Yes.
Right? That's experience equity from being, you know, from kicking it with Guru in a hotel room, right? Or being at the Chateau Marmont, one of the most famous hotels in the world in LA, in Mos Def's suite, chatting about life.
Crazy.
To being in a dressing room at Wembley Stadium with Elton John talking about football, right?
Mad.
All these different mad experiences.
And they just put it in a box and that, you know, and
It's all there, right?
Exactly.
It's all there. It's all there. And then you just don't understand what those experiences mean and how much weight they have.
Yeah, you know, you don't.
Until you start to have conversations with people and you start to connect dots and you start to see things with a clarity that comes from all the experiences that you have when they're often too close to a project or they're too kind of shrouded in their own insecurities. And writing a book about the art of conversation called Let's Talk, that also then just crystallized everything that I needed to know about what you and I are doing here. Which is, you know,
set with intention.
Having a conversation and, you know, I mean, how have you navigated it?
What, navigated doing podcasts?
No, just like from being a beatboxer, from having that to still being in the culture, but also being in the culture in a way, most importantly, that it can support you, right? That it can keep the lights turned on and keep food in your belly.
I think it comes similar to yourself. I think it comes with full intention, knowing what your intention is, and giving and converting that into efforts that the act of giving and love. You know that you're doing this for the right motivations, the right reasons. It comes from the culture that we've been brought up, the moral compass that we hold within hip hop, and it doesn't matter what areas of the world. And I think with you, and I say areas of the world in conversation, in broadcasting, in culture, whatever it is, you're able to transfer that. And I like to think I can as well, but for you especially, you're able to transfer that. Now, the closest comparable, I guess, you know, if you were a graffiti writer, Nihal, I think you'd probably be one of the most up writers. And I think that's because you weaponize what you do. I think you have to. You attack things. I think ultimately, and I can only speak for myself, but when I really think of who that competitor is, I'm probably looking in the mirror. I think I want to challenge myself, and I think that's where this comes. It's the tenaciousness to want to do it over and over again and repeat that process. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, without question.
You know,
without question, we're always at war with ourselves. I definitely am.
It's the hip hop way.
Yeah, man. Like it's yeah. Yeah, we're always at war with ourselves. Like I'm constantly at war with myself. Like even reading the books today, and then I'll just go, do you know what? I'm going to play the game on my phone for half an hour. Right? When you just should be reading the book. But it's like, you know what? No, I need this vibe.
Yeah.
I need this vibe. I need this. And it's interesting. It's interesting to find out. Also as well, because I have kids, right? Like, so what example am I setting to them? Right? But my example has to be, like, I really admire Gen Z setting up these boundaries.
For sure.
Right, and saying, actually, no, I'm not going to work 24/7. I'm not going to burn out at 35, right? I'm not. I'm going to try and balance this in a way that we were definitely not advised to do that. We were advised to work our asses off.
Yeah, and the hill's only going steeper, and we're spinning. Yeah, when those guys, they know really that. You know, to even get an apartment is a lot. To walk into a job opportunity and be a runner for nothing that's not logical in this day and age. It's not practical.
But also as well, I mean, that just means that everyone's excluded other than people that can afford it or they've got parents in the game, right?
That's it.
Everyone else is excluded. And again, you're going to get into this trouble where people were just complaining about this at the Brits, right? With certain acts that went to like 30, 40 grand a year schools, right?
Wow.
And the preponderance of those acts. And that's terrifying because the one good thing about hip hop is that it's almost overwhelmingly from hip hop culture, grime and drill and that almost you have to be from backgrounds like it's they're socially mobile. But also what's been brilliant about, I think what Stormzy's done and other people is, and I think Tiny Temple was brilliant at this with Dummy, his manager.
Yes.
Which was about really creating kind of black executives, like really creating ecosystem for people of color to progress in and blossom in.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful,
Yeah.
so that you don't have to just keep going back to the same people.
That's right.
I think Lenny Henry said this once, you know, he was sick of eating at the kids' table, want to eat with the grown-ups. And for so long, diversity was about giving you crumbs, right, and making you feel
secondary.
You must be grateful for these crumbs we're giving you. There's a good brown person. There's a good black person. We're being nice to you there. You have a shiny job. You'll be below me. You'll always be below me, but there's a shiny job. And I think some of that has changed. But I mean, you know, Trump's attack on diversity, equity, inclusion is the kind of last stand of this old generation who don't want to share.
For sure.
They don't want to share, right? They want it all for themselves. And Obama terrified those people, man. When Obama became president, those people were terrified. It was like, wow, these people now, we might have to start treating these people as equals. And look at the backlash, right? Look where we've been since Obama.
Yeah.
You know, Obama stopped, right? Yeah, and that's you know, that's kind of terrifying, right? So it's 2008, Obama. 2012,
like
2012 to 2016.
Wow.
I mean, it'll be 10 years next year since Obama stopped being president, right? Stopped being president.
Wow.
And now look, Trump is this, and all these men around him. I mean, look, you looked at that inauguration. My God, where was the diversity in that? Like billionaire tech bros, just billionaire.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, wow, this really is the kind of shoring up of power to go, right, we're not sharing this. Our greed knows no boundaries. It has no limits. Our need to feel powerful, that aphrodisiac, that financial Viagra, is just, we want to hard on forever with this stuff, right? We don't want it ever to end. And it's like, wow. And we're not sharing it, right? It's interesting. I mean, I've interviewed Gary Stevenson.
Really?
You know
Yeah,
Gary's
of course,
economics? Yeah. I've interviewed him a few times. In fact, I did.
He's an interesting character.
Really interesting. But it makes so much sense what he says about wealth inequality and how actually that is the most terrifying thing of all, right? That is, I mean, I was talking to someone Nigerian, and they were saying to me, a husband and wife, they were saying to me that the middle class in Nigeria is disappearing.
I've heard
right?
this, yeah.
You're either super rich or you're poor, right? And that's
not too far away in England.
Bro, like, you know, it's you can just buy up everything.
Yeah.
You can just buy up everything. And Gary Stevenson just put it so bluntly. He just said, you know, he said, how much did Rishi Sunak earn? And I was like, I think, you know, he's supposed to have earned this much in a year. He said, right. Do you think he can spend that in a year? I said, well, no, impossible almost. He said, right. So what do you think he does with it? He just buys assets. Just buys up stuff.
Yeah.
Because they've got so much excess money. They don't give it away. Like, they don't go, you know, they're not like, is it Mackenzie Scott, who's Jeff Bezos' ex-wife?
Right.
Who gives away billions of pounds. Just goes, I don't need this. What do I need this for? I mean, I know someone who makes luxury yachts. And he was saying they replace these every 2 to 3 years. Right? They replace their yachts every 2 to 3 years. Rich people.
Wow.
The super rich. And then what they'll do is they'll see a dude with a bigger yacht than them.
And then they get the complex.
And then they'll go, then they'll get like small dick syndrome and go and get a bigger yacht. It's like, come on, man. Like, how insecure can you be?
Wow.
Like, you have so much stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And yet you're still going...
No, I'm like that, yeah.
Oh, like, it's madness to me that... It's like a psychosis.
Yeah.
Right? How can you be... It's so weird.
It is weird.
It's so weird. There is that thing, isn't there, that says that over 70... Someone told me this, and I don't agree with the figure, but they were saying like over 70 grand a year, your life, you don't get any happier. You just accrue more things. Right?
I can imagine
But
that.
you don't get any happier.
Nah.
You know.
Do you like... I like the idea of just being on the back foot. Now, you know, I don't want to put it out there too far into the ether, but I definitely feel like the less baggage I have, the more I can come at things aggressively and the right kind of burn, the right kind of drive and desires.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know, man. I've got more trainers than I'll ever need. So I just stopped
Yeah, but
buying
you're a
them.
hip hop head, man. You gotta,
I know,
No.
but like I stopped buying them because it was like, why am I looking at these boxes? Now, like, I'm not Kish Cash, right? Like, I'm not.
Big up Kish, yeah.
Big up Kish. Like, I'm not a scientist of this. I'm not a guru of it. He's a guru of it, right? So it's different for him. But for me, it was just like, I'd open up these wardrobes and I'd see box, and I'd go, wow, like 80% of these I'm not wearing on a regular basis. Like, why do I need this stuff? But when you see these super rich people and they'll go, yeah, I bought this, I don't know, Travis Scott in 5 different colours or whatever, $2,000 a pop or whatever it is. I don't know. I haven't looked on StockX for a minute. And you're like, wow. Like, that's my wife calling. Sorry.
No, good.
I'll get her. Please text me. I'm in a thing, man. I'm doing a thing. It's, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. So I'm lucky enough that I have a place in Sri Lanka, right? Our home in Sri Lanka, right?
Nice.
And we have a swimming pool, right? And there's this thing where you lie on your back at about 6:30 in the evening, just around dusk.
Oh,
And I lie
God,
on
that
my
sounds
back.
good already.
Yeah,
bro.
I know. You lie, and from far away, wherever these caves are that they are, these huge bats start to just appear around dusk.
Wow.
And they fly over, and you're lying there, and I just watch them. I watch them glide past me, and it's my favourite feeling in the whole world. Like, there's nothing.
That is incredible.
There's nothing I've ever bought. Now, I'm lucky, and I know I'm privileged to have a place with a swimming pool in Sri Lanka, right? It's something we inherited. You know, it's a family thing, right? It's certainly not something I could afford. But it's a simple thing. Right? Actually, just lying there with my dog my dogs just makes me feel great, you know? Having a meal at the table with my kids and my wife and just chatting.
It's everything.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine just thinking, nah, this is not enough. Like, I need to have, like, looking at the dude next door who's got a bigger house and going, nah, I want a bigger house now.
Yeah.
Or going, nah, I need that car. I need
It's very
this
John
watch.
Candy and Dan Aykroyd, isn't it? It's very Great Outdoors. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, just
There is a vibe.
juxtapose.
There is a vibe to it. Like, there is a vibe to it. Because there comes a point where you have to earn, if you want the kind of money that, if you're not a millionaire already, I don't know, man. Like, and I know some super rich people, and I don't know. And look, comparatively speaking, I'm very, very, you know, I'm doing well, right? Comparatively speaking to a lot of people, but I don't.
You don't desire those things.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I'm a Buddhist. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to learn to be just chill with it. What is it? What is it that makes me happy? And actually, you know, now I'm not doing that grind of full-time radio, just dropping my kids at school every day. And
That changes everything when you're off the conveyor belt.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you've never been on the conveyor belt, have you?
Yeah, there's been some times where I've
Have
been on
you?
conveyor belt. Yeah, and
When?
it's just fucking harsh.
I've never known you to be a conveyor belt guy.
I'm not-
You've
I'm not-
always survived
yeah.
by your creativity and your art.
I have, but there's been situations where I put myself in roles
We've had to.
where I've had to,
Right.
as much as it's, you know, freelance and there is a clear line in which I work, and taking on a role, you know, I don't take lightly. I take that really seriously, as long as it works in accordance to my beliefs from a creative standpoint.
Right, okay.
But you're also dealing with rigid corporate people behavior mentality, and that really, those buffers hit all the time. And to get off that ride and say to yourself, well, that was an experience, wasn't it? You know, what did I learn from that? What can I take from that, and how can I move forward? And I guess that's the sentiment of the podcast, isn't it? It's constant moving.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving, yeah.
You know?
I like that. I mean, I think it's the pace at which you want to keep it moving. That's the thing. And also as well, that whole thing about work smart, don't work hard, just work smart, right? But it is that, isn't it? It's like, okay, what do I want to do? I mean, at Glastonbury last year, we met a guy and he used to work for a huge accounting firm in and he was based in Moscow, right, in the 80s or 90s.
You know when when it starts in Glastonbury, you know these things are just like 1 in a million, but you always get them. Something about Glastonbury bringing people together in these moments.
So
it's
true.
It's mad, isn't it?
So true. But yet, if you looked at him, he had long white hair, long white beard, and he put up all the teepees in this area, in the park area, right? He did all of that, and that's what he did. And now he spends most of his time living in India, comes back,
And he's a happy camper. That's just
dude.
that's the way it should be.
He found the rhythm that meant the most to him, right?
Yeah.
You know? The rhythm that he could vibe with. And that's incredible.
You need a lived experience for that alone, don't you?
Yeah, and
to
he
know
had
what not
it.
to do.
He definitely had it. And now I know definitely what I don't want to do, right? I definitely know that. And now I just want to be around really creative, interesting people. I don't want to be dragged down by any one organisation.
Fucking cool as fuck,
You
man.
know? Well, let's see. Let's see. In 5 years' time, it may not have worked out at all. But I think, like we were saying before, just when you think that isn't going to happen, I think the energy's out there and people know what you're about, then, you know, you just got to do it.
My brother,
Wicked.
it's been fantastic having a chat with you.
Yeah, it's so good. It's long overdue. now.
Enlightened, inspired, and I hope you guys are too. Crazy A-Tales, you know what I'm saying? Nihal, thank you so much, my brother.
My guy. Thank you so much.
Killa Kela
Chris.
podcast, Our Latin was out of fashion. Remember, crime don't pay, but neither do they. All right? You stay lucky and don't talk to anyone I wouldn't. Take it easy. Peace. That was fucking great.
Well, we went to some places.
Yeah, we did.